In the chill of a relentless winter, where city lights struggled against the biting cold and ancient legends whispered through the urban maze, Vera's fate was sealed long before she stepped foot into the realm of the supernatural. The sprawling metropolis of New Haven, an eclectic blend of modern skyscrapers and lingering echoes of old-world mysticism, provided the perfect backdrop for a tale where passion, betrayal, and redemption intertwined like the twisted branches of a frost-laden tree. Vera had always been different. Raised in the heart of the city by a family burdened with secrets, her life was an intricate tapestry of love, loss, and mystery. Yet nothing in her sheltered upbringing had prepared her for the day she was chosen as tribute, a pawn in a game, centuries old, handed over to Corin, the enigmatic alpha of a hidden werewolf clan. Corin, whose reputation was as formidable as the winter storms that ravaged the outskirts of New Haven, was a figure shrouded in both fear and admiration. His piercing eyes, a haunting blend of ice and amber, carried the weight of unspoken tragedies and ancient battles, while his demeanor exuded a cold authority that commanded respect and dread alike. On a frigid evening, under a sky alight with the ethereal glow of the aurora borealis, Vera was led through the labyrinthine alleys of the city to a secluded estate on the edge of the wilderness. The mansion, an imposing relic of a bygone era, was nestled among towering pines and frost-covered cliffs, a stark reminder that the realm of the supernatural was never far from the modern world. As she approached the heavy oak doors, her heart pounded with a mixture of trepidation and a strange, unexplainable longing. This was the beginning of a journey that would challenge everything she believed about love, loyalty, and the cost of secrets. Inside, the atmosphere was charged with an otherworldly energy. Corin awaited her in a grand hall, where icy sculptures and flickering torches created a surreal interplay of light and shadow. His presence was overwhelming, a paradox of harshness and vulnerability. "Welcome, Vera," he intoned, his voice resonating with authority and an undercurrent of melancholy. "I have long awaited your arrival." His words, though measured, carried a weight that belied the cool facade he so meticulously maintained. Vera's eyes met his, and in that moment, a spark ignited, a collision of fates. "I am not here by choice," she replied, her voice trembling yet defiant. "But if destiny has bound me to you, then perhaps there is more to this path than I can imagine." Her admission, raw and honest, stirred something deep within Corin. For a brief heartbeat, the icy veneer around him cracked, revealing hints of a man tormented by his own past, a past filled with regret, loss, and a desire for redemption. Their first encounter was a battle of wills. Corin's icy demeanor clashed with Vera's fiery determination. Over the next few days, as the winter deepened, their interactions grew increasingly complex. In the quiet moments between stern commands and shared glances, they began to peel back layers of armor. In whispered conversations by the crackling fireplace, Vera discovered fragments of Corin's story, a legacy of betrayal that had fractured his once unyielding heart and led to a bitter isolation from both his kind and humanity. One evening, as a storm raged outside, the tension between them reached a crescendo. "You speak of betrayal as if it were a distant myth," Vera said softly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "But I feel it in every moment we share, in every word left unsaid." Corin's gaze faltered for an instant, and the silence that followed was laden with unspoken sorrow. "There are truths better left buried, Vera," he murmured, his voice cracking under the weight of his confession. "Some secrets, once unearthed, can shatter even the strongest bonds." His reluctance to reveal the full extent of his past only deepened the mystery, casting a shadow of doubt over the fragile connection they were building. Amidst the ornate halls and frozen landscapes, hints of a larger conspiracy began to emerge. Unbeknownst to both, their union was not a mere accident of fate, but a deliberate orchestration by forces that had manipulated the destinies of their ancestors for generations. The ancient clan of shifters was entangled in a web of political intrigue, where loyalty was measured in sacrifices and every gesture carried the potential for treachery. Vera's arrival, seen by some as an opportunity and by others as a curse, stirred old rivalries and ignited dormant ambitions among the clan's elders. In the bustling urban quarters of New Haven, life carried on unaware of the supernatural undercurrents shaping the destiny of its inhabitants. Streets filled with the hum of traffic and neon signs belied the secret wars waged in the shadows. As Vera navigated her new reality, she found solace in stolen moments, quiet walks in the snow-covered city parks, late-night reflections by shimmering lakes, and fleeting embraces that promised hope amidst despair. Her inner monologue was a constant battle between the longing for normalcy and the undeniable pull of the extraordinary, an internal dialogue that painted every day with shades of defiance and longing. Throughout her early days in the clan's dominion, Vera encountered a cast of characters as enigmatic as they were pivotal. There was Elena, a wise elder with eyes that seemed to peer into the soul of every visitor, who took Vera under her wing, guiding her through the labyrinth of clan politics and ancient rituals. "The heart remembers what the mind tries to forget," Elena would say in her soft, measured tone, hinting at the deep-seated scars that each member of the clan carried. Then there was Marcus, a brooding enforcer whose loyalty to Corin was unwavering yet whose own past was shrouded in mystery, a man whose silence spoke volumes of betrayal and the heavy cost of survival. Amid these interactions, a subtle tension grew between Vera and Corin, a magnetic pull that was as inevitable as it was dangerous. Their encounters were marked by intense dialogue and lingering glances, a silent dance of desire and restraint. In one particularly charged moment, while the first snow of the season blanketed the estate in pristine white, Corin confronted Vera in a secluded garden. "Do you ever wonder if the chains of destiny can be broken?" he asked, his voice low and almost pleading. Vera's reply was a whisper against the howling wind. "I believe every heart can choose its path, even if the journey is paved with shadows." In that fleeting exchange, the seeds of rebellion and the possibility of redemption were sown, intertwining their fates ever more tightly. Yet, beneath the growing intimacy, lay an undercurrent of foreboding. The more Vera sought to understand the man behind the ice, the more she discovered unsettling fragments of a history that could unravel everything. Whispers of a long-forgotten betrayal, of a love lost to time and a family torn apart by ambition, haunted her nights. A mysterious journal, hidden in the depths of the mansion's ancient library, hinted at a lineage marked by both brilliance and treachery. Its pages, yellowed and fragile, spoke of a prophecy and a curse that threatened to consume the Alpha's lineage unless a secret was finally brought to light. During a particularly somber evening, as rain pattered against frost-covered windows, Vera pored over the cryptic journal. Each sentence was a thread in a tapestry of dark lore, suggesting that Corin's icy exterior was a protective barrier against an insidious legacy of pain. "The heart of an Alpha is a double-edged sword," the journal read in faded script. "It can both forge unbreakable bonds and cast shadows that defy the light." The weight of these words pressed upon Vera, deepening her resolve to uncover the truth and perhaps in doing so, free both herself and Corin from the shackles of a past that refused to die. As days bled into nights, Vera's internal struggle intensified. Torn between the desire to unlock Corin's guarded heart and the fear of becoming ensnared in the dangerous web of clan politics, she found herself questioning everything she once believed. The delicate balance between passion and duty was constantly disrupted by revelations that challenged the very fabric of her identity. In the echo of every whispered secret, and in the quiet intensity of stolen glances, she sensed that her journey was part of a much larger cosmic design, a design where every action, every betrayal, and every act of redemption was intertwined with the fate of an entire legacy. In the midst of this turmoil, a clandestine meeting in a shadowed alleyway of downtown New Haven sent shockwaves through the supernatural community. Rumors of an impending coup, one that could dismantle the established order of the shifter clans, began to circulate like wildfire. In hushed tones, under the cover of darkness, members of rival factions gathered to plot a revolution that would upend centuries of tradition. Vera, now acutely aware of the dangerous game being played around her, realized that her own destiny was inextricably linked to these turbulent forces. Every whispered conversation and furtive glance in the night carried the promise of imminent betrayal and every choice she made could tip the scales between salvation and oblivion. Even as the storm of conspiracy raged around her, Vera clung to a fragile hope, a belief that redemption was possible, even for those burdened by a legacy of sin. In moments of solitude, when the weight of the world pressed heavily upon her soul, she would gaze out over the snow-dusted cityscape and imagine a future where love triumphed over despair. "I will not be defined by the shadows of the past," she vowed silently, her breath forming ephemeral clouds in the frigid air. "I will forge my own destiny, even if it means challenging the very forces that seek to bind me." Throughout this unfolding drama, dialogue and introspection intermingled seamlessly. Corin, though often stoic, began to reveal cracks in his icy demeanor during their rare moments of vulnerability. In a hushed conversation by a window overlooking the swirling snow, he confessed, "Every scar, every betrayal, it has all led me here to you, yet I fear that the darkness of my past might be too deep for even your warmth to reach." His words, raw and laden with regret, resonated deeply with Vera, igniting a determination within her to break through the barriers that confined them both. "We are more than the sum of our scars," she countered softly, her voice a beacon in the night. "Together we can rewrite the story that fate has set for us." As the first chapter of their intertwined destinies drew to a close, the tension was palpable. Every conversation, every secret shared, and every silent glance contributed to a crescendo of emotion that promised even greater revelations in the days to come. The stage was set for a collision of worlds, a convergence of love, betrayal, and the timeless struggle for redemption that would shake the very foundations of both the human and the supernatural realms. With the final echoes of that fateful evening lingering in the cold air, the tale of Vera and Corin was poised on the brink of transformation, their paths inexorably linked by fate and forged in the crucible of ancient secrets. The promise of an uncertain future loomed large, leaving every heartbeat in suspense, every soul yearning for the answers hidden within the darkness of the unknown. The aftermath of that fateful winter night set in motion a series of events that would test every boundary of trust, loyalty, and destiny. As dawn broke over New Haven, the city shimmered with a fragile promise of renewal. Yet beneath the veneer of everyday life, the hidden currents of power and secrecy churned with renewed intensity. In the wake of the clandestine coup hinted at during that icy meeting, Vera found herself grappling with revelations that threatened to upend her understanding of both the supernatural realm and her own turbulent past. In the early hours, Vera wandered through the awakening streets of New Haven, her mind still heavy with the cryptic words of the journal. Every step she took was punctuated by the icy bite of the wind, a reminder that the forces manipulating her destiny were as relentless as the winter itself. The city, with its vibrant murals and bustling cafes, seemed to offer a stark contrast to the ancient, somber legacy that now entwined itself with her fate. Yet, no matter how much she tried to seek solace in the mundane, echoes of betrayal and sorrow lingered in every shadow. At the heart of this inner turmoil was the unyielding presence of Corin. His enigmatic silence and guarded demeanor had become the axis around which her new reality revolved. Their interactions grew more charged as the days passed. In one particularly evocative moment, the two found themselves in a quiet, forgotten courtyard behind the mansion, a hidden sanctuary where the world seemed to pause. The chill in the air was momentarily forgotten, as their eyes locked in a silent conversation that needed no words. "You carry burdens that no mortal should ever know," Corin murmured, his tone soft yet imbued with an intensity that made the cold seem to recede for a fleeting second. His gaze, deep and searching, seemed to look right through the layers of her defenses. Vera, taken aback by the raw vulnerability in his confession, hesitated before replying. "And you, Alpha, wear a solitude that suffocates you. Tell me, can the heart ever find liberation from its own chains?" Her voice trembled with both curiosity and defiance, a testament to the courage she had mustered in the face of overwhelming despair. As they spoke, the threads of their conversation wove a tapestry of shared pain and unspoken dreams. Corin's eyes glistened with memories of a past marred by loss not only of love but of trust, of kinship, and of the very essence that defined his kind. Each word he uttered was a confession, a glimpse into a soul that had long been imprisoned by the consequences of betrayal. "I was once whole," he whispered, almost inaudibly. "But the scars of treachery have etched themselves into the very fabric of my being. Every decision, every mistake, it has led me to this juncture, where your presence is both a beacon and a curse." Back in the heart of New Haven, the reverberations of the supernatural upheaval began to manifest. In unexpected ways, whispers of dissent among the shifter clans grew louder, and alliances long forged by blood and tradition started to crumble under the weight of secret pacts and hidden agendas. Vera, increasingly entangled in the political chess game of her new world, discovered that her own family history was far more interwoven with these dark legacies than she had ever imagined. A late-night encounter with an estranged relative, a figure both mysterious and compelling, uncovered fragments of a story that spanned generations. In the dim light of a rundown diner, hidden away in one of the city's forgotten neighborhoods, Vera sat across from her reclusive cousin Daniel. His eyes, hardened by years of silence and regret, betrayed the pain of knowing too many truths that had been deliberately buried. "Our lineage," he confided in a gravelly voice, "has always been a double-edged sword. We are bound by a curse of ambition and deceit, a legacy that Corin's clan has long sought to control. You are the key to unlocking what has been hidden for far too long." Daniel's words struck Vera like a jolt of electricity, intertwining with the journal's haunting prophecy and deepening the mystery of her own identity. Every piece of the puzzle now pointed towards a destiny that was as ominous as it was inevitable. Back at the mansion, the atmosphere grew increasingly tense as preparations for the impending coup took shape. In the shadowed corridors of the ancient estate, alliances were being forged in whispers and secret meetings. Elena, ever the sagacious mentor, gathered a select group of loyal clan members to discuss the looming threat. "The storm approaches," she declared, her voice resolute, yet tinged with sorrow. "If we do not stand together, our world will be torn asunder by the forces that have long sought to dismantle the balance between the human and the supernatural." Her words resonated with the urgency of impending conflict, a call to arms that left no room for hesitation. Amid these strategic councils, Marcus, the brooding enforcer, found himself at a crossroads. His loyalty to Corin was unwavering, yet the revelations about the past, coupled with his own hidden demons, began to cast doubt on the righteousness of their cause. One evening, as the moon cast long shadows over the estate, he confronted Corin in a secluded library filled with ancient tomes and cryptic symbols. "Alpha," Marcus began, his voice a low rumble, "how can we be certain that the path we tread is one of salvation, and not yet another labyrinth of treachery?" Corin's eyes narrowed as he replied, "Every choice we make is a risk, Marcus. But I believe that in our darkest moments, when all seems lost, redemption awaits those who dare to defy fate." Their exchange, though brief, left an indelible mark on Marcus, fueling a simmering conflict between duty and doubt. The tension reached its zenith during a grand feast held in the mansion's great hall, a gathering meant to celebrate the ancient traditions of the Shifter clan. Yet beneath the ornate decorations and the clinking of crystal glasses, suspicion and fear festered. Vera, now a reluctant participant in the political intrigue, moved through the crowd like a spectral observer. Every laugh, every whispered conversation, and every sideways glance seemed loaded with meaning. In that charged atmosphere, her thoughts drifted back to the secret journal, to Daniel's revelations, and to the burning question: was she merely a pawn in an elaborate game, or the catalyst for a long-awaited redemption? As the evening unfolded, tensions escalated with every passing moment. A heated argument between two influential clan elders escalated into a confrontation that threatened to disrupt the fragile unity of the gathering. "You dare question the Alpha's judgment?" one elder roared, his voice echoing against the marble columns. "The fate of our people is at stake, and your insolence will be your undoing." The confrontation quickly morphed into chaos, as allegiances were thrown into sharp relief. Amid the turmoil, Corin's voice cut through the din, commanding order and unity. "Enough! We are at the precipice of a new era. Let our actions tonight not be driven by anger, but by the unyielding hope that binds us all." His words, powerful and unwavering, momentarily quelled the uprising, yet the undercurrent of discord remained palpable. Outside, the winter wind howled with a ferocity that mirrored the internal strife of the clan. In the quiet solitude of his private chamber, Corin revisited memories that had long been locked away. His mind wandered back to a time when love and trust were not luxuries but birthrights. There was a time when his heart beat freely, unburdened by the weight of betrayal. But that innocence was shattered by a treachery that not only claimed the life of his beloved but also fractured the very foundation of his lineage. "I must protect what remains," he whispered to the empty room, his reflection in the frost-covered window bearing silent testimony to the scars of his past. The conflict within him was a silent battle, one that waged between the desire for vengeance and the hope for redemption. Meanwhile, Vera's internal world was undergoing its own tumultuous transformation. As she pieced together the fragments of her family's history, she began to see parallels between her own life and the tragedies that had long haunted Corin. In the solitude of a quiet night, she penned her thoughts in a leather-bound journal, a essay, practice that had become both a refuge and a record of her evolving identity. "Every secret carries a price," she wrote in flowing script, "and every betrayal leaves behind echoes of shattered dreams. Yet within these echoes I sense the faint stirrings of hope, a promise that even the deepest wounds may one day find solace in forgiveness." Her words were both a lament and a declaration, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of insurmountable odds. The convergence of their personal battles was marked by a series of fateful encounters. One such instance occurred during an unexpected meeting at an abandoned train station, a relic of a bygone era that now served as a canvas for clandestine rendezvous. There, amid the rusting tracks and the distant hum of the city, Vera encountered a mysterious stranger who claimed to hold vital information about the impending coup. "You must tread carefully," the stranger warned, his eyes darting around as if haunted by unseen threats. "The betrayal that runs through your veins is only a prelude to the treachery that looms over this clan. There are those who would see you destroyed, not for what you are, but for what you represent. A spark of defiance in a sea of conformity." His cryptic message left Vera with more questions than answers, yet it also fueled her determination to uncover the truth. Over the ensuing days, the dual forces of love and betrayal wove an increasingly intricate web around Vera and Corin. Their interactions grew more intense, with every touch and every word laden with the weight of destiny. In quiet moments away from the prying eyes of the clan, Corin began to reveal details of his former life, a time when love had been his anchor before the cruelty of fate tore it asunder. "I once believed," he confessed during a midnight stroll along a frozen river, "that every heart, no matter how battered, could be mended by the warmth of compassion. But the past, with its relentless cruelty, has a way of freezing even the deepest embers of hope." Vera listened intently, her heart aching with the shared sorrow of unfulfilled dreams. "Yet, perhaps," she whispered, "if we dare to face the cold together, we can melt the ice that encases us both." Their dialogue was a dance of vulnerability and resilience, a promise that even in a world ruled by ancient curses and modern betrayals, the human spirit could rise above its scars. As the tension within the clan reached a boiling point, an unforeseen twist jolted the fragile balance of power. A secret alliance between rogue elements of the clan and dissident human factions emerged, aiming to dismantle the oppressive structures that had governed their existence for centuries. This coalition, born out of desperation and a longing for change, set the stage for a confrontation that promised to shatter old alliances and rebuild new ones. The revelation hit Corin like a tempest. "All along we have been blind to the true enemy," he declared in a voice that trembled with both anger and resolve. "It is not only our past that haunts us, it is the present, manipulated by those who seek to keep us in eternal subjugation." His words ignited a spark of rebellion in the hearts of those who had long suffered in silence. In the midst of this upheaval, Vera found herself standing at a crossroads. The burden of her lineage, the weight of her family's hidden sins, and the magnetic pull of a love that defied reason, all converged in a moment of stark clarity. With the night drawing in, and the city pulsing with the energy of impending revolution, she vowed to no longer be a passive victim of fate. "I will unearth the truths that have been buried for generations," she resolved, her voice carrying the strength of newfound purpose, even if it means shattering the illusions that have kept us confined in the darkness. Her declaration, filled with fierce determination, resonated with the promise of change and the possibility of redemption. Every conversation, every secret revealed, and every act of defiance became a stepping stone towards an uncertain future. The delicate dance between trust and betrayal had reached a fever pitch, and the stakes had never been higher. In a world where the supernatural intermingled with the stark realities of modern life, the battle for freedom was not merely one of physical might, but a struggle for the very soul of the characters caught in its relentless tide. As the chapter drew to a close, the myriad threads of fate coalesced into an image of both despair and hope, a portrait of a future on the verge of transformation. The night sky, heavy with secrets and illuminated by the ghostly light of distant stars, bore silent witness to the vow of a young woman who dared to challenge destiny itself. And in that solemn moment, with the murmurs of rebellion echoing softly through the corridors of power, the story of Vera and Corin was set on an irreversible course, a journey where every heartbeat, every tear, and every whispered promise would lead them closer to the ultimate reckoning. With the promise of a new dawn, mingling with the embers of a past long shrouded in mystery, the stakes were higher than ever before. In the midst of chaos, love and betrayal wove an intricate tapestry, leaving no doubt that the coming days would redefine everything they had once known. The suspense was palpable, and every soul held its breath, waiting for the moment when destiny would finally reveal its hidden design. In the aftermath of the escalating tensions that had shaken the very core of the supernatural realm, the night bore witness to a convergence of destinies that promised to alter the fabric of both the human and shifter worlds. The icy veil of darkness concealed hidden agendas and fragile alliances, while the flickering city lights of New Haven cast elongated shadows that whispered secrets of centuries past. In this charged atmosphere, the battle for truth and redemption took on a new, more dangerous form. The mansion, a silent sentinel amid the tumult, became the stage for clandestine meetings and whispered conspiracies. Corin, haunted by the dual burden of his tragic past and the weight of imminent betrayal, convened with his most trusted advisors. In the private confines of a dimly lit war room adorned with relics of a bygone era, he laid bare the gravity of the impending conflict. "Tonight," he declared in a measured tone, "we stand on the threshold of change. The forces arrayed against us are not mere rebels. They are the very embodiment of the treachery that has plagued our lineage. We must be resolute, for failure is a luxury we cannot afford." His words resonated with an urgency that stirred both fear and determination among those present. Elsewhere, Vera wrestled with the mounting revelations about her own heritage. The cryptic journal, now a constant companion, had revealed disturbing hints of a family curse and an ancestral connection to the shifter clans, a bond that defied time and reason. In the solitude of her modest urban apartment, where the hum of city life blended with the quiet intensity of her thoughts, she pored over faded letters and weathered photographs. Each document was a piece of a larger mosaic, one that hinted at betrayals and lost love, of promises made in the flicker of candlelight and then shattered by the cruelty of fate. Her internal monologue was punctuated by memories of childhood, a time when her family's laughter filled their humble home, and secrets were confined to hushed conversations behind closed doors. Now, as she traced the faded ink of a letter, written by a long-forgotten ancestor, Vera began to understand that her destiny was irrevocably intertwined with the clan's legacy. "Our blood is stained with the choices of those who came before," she mused, her voice barely audible over the steady patter of rain against the window. Yet within that darkness, there lies a spark, a hope that we might reclaim what was lost if only we dare to confront the past. At the heart of this internal revolution was the growing intensity of her relationship with Corin. Their connection once a tentative dance of guarded emotions and half-spoken promises, had evolved into a tumultuous bond fueled by shared pain and the desperate desire for liberation. During a rare, private moment, they met in a secluded courtyard of the mansion, a place where the cold was tempered by the warmth of unspoken understanding. "Corin," Vera began, her eyes reflecting both the storm outside and the turmoil within. "Every revelation about our past deepens the mystery of who we truly are. I fear that the secrets we guard may be the very chains that hold us captive." Corin's gaze softened for an instant, as if the fierce alpha persona was giving way to a man tormented by regrets. "I have borne the weight of these secrets for so long that I no longer know whether they are a curse or a call to redemption," he replied quietly, his voice laden with both sorrow and determination. "But if there is even a glimmer of hope, it lies in our willingness to confront them together." Their conversation was abruptly interrupted by the sudden arrival of Marcus, the ever-loyal yet conflicted enforcer whose doubts had begun to erode his unwavering allegiance. "Alpha," Marcus said, his tone measured but resolute. "Rumors of a secret alliance between rogue shifters and dissident human groups are spreading like wildfire. If we do not act swiftly, our world may descend into chaos far worse than the one we currently endure." His words cast a pall over the fragile moment of intimacy, underscoring the pervasive sense of urgency that permeated every corner of the mansion. Outside, the urban sprawl of New Haven was alive with unrest. In the labyrinth of back alleys and neon-lit streets, factions that had long lain dormant stirred with a renewed hunger for change. The human populace, increasingly aware of the supernatural, undercurrents shaping their fate, found themselves caught in the crossfire of ancient rivalries and modern ambitions. Amid this urban maelstrom, a covert meeting was underway in a forgotten warehouse on the fringes of the city. Here, disenchanted citizens and renegade shifters gathered in secret, united by a singular purpose: to challenge the oppressive hierarchies that had ruled their lives for far too long. At the helm of this insurgency was a charismatic leader known only as Raven. Clad in dark attire that blended seamlessly with the shadows, Raven's presence exuded both mystery and magnetism. "We have been living in a system of deceit," Raven proclaimed to the gathered crowd, his voice a clarion call that pierced through the murmur of discontent. "It is time to reclaim our narrative, to break the shackles that bind us to a destiny written by those who have forsaken us. Our future is not dictated by ancient curses or the whims of tyrants. It is ours to shape." His words ignited a spark of rebellion, and the murmurs of the crowd grew into fervent cheers, setting the stage for a confrontation that threatened to engulf both worlds in chaos. Back at the mansion, Corin's thoughts turned to the enigma of the betrayal that had fractured his past. In a moment of rare introspection, he recalled the face of a long-lost lover, a woman whose memory had haunted him like a specter. "I was deceived by those I trusted," he confessed to Elena, his voice barely more than a whisper, as they stood amidst ancient scrolls and relics of a forgotten era. Her betrayal was not just a personal wound, but the catalyst for the downfall of our once proud lineage. And now, as echoes of that treachery reverberate through our present, I am compelled to right the wrongs of history, even if it means risking everything I hold dear. Elena's eyes, reflecting the weight of wisdom earned through years of sacrifice, met his with a mixture of empathy and steely resolve. "The path to redemption is never without peril," she replied, her tone both gentle and unyielding. "But sometimes, the greatest light emerges from the darkest of nights." Determined to reclaim control of his destiny, Corin orchestrated a bold plan to confront the conspiracies that threatened his clan. In the deep hours of the night, he summoned a select group of loyal warriors to a hidden chamber beneath the mansion, a sanctum that bore the scars of past battles and the echoes of ancestral valor. "We stand at the precipice of change," he intoned, his voice echoing off cold stone walls. "Our enemies lurk in the shadows, but our strength lies in our unity and our resolve. Tonight, we fight not just for survival, but for the promise of a future free from the chains of betrayal." His call to arms resonated with a fierce determination, stirring the hearts of those who had longed for a chance to restore honor to their fractured lineage. Meanwhile, The revelations concerning Vera's family history deepened, casting a long shadow over her identity. A chance encounter with an enigmatic historian at a bustling urban library unearthed documents that hinted at a clandestine pact, forged centuries ago, a pact that had bound her family to the fate of the Shifter clans. Your ancestors were guardians of secrets too perilous for the light of day, the historian confided, his voice imbued with the gravitas of ancient lore. They believed that only through sacrifice could the balance between the mortal and the supernatural realms be maintained. It appears that you have inherited not only their legacy, but also their burdens. These words, heavy with implication, left Vera reeling, as she struggled to reconcile the comfortable identity she had known with the staggering truth of her origins. In the solitude of her room, with the storm outside echoing the turbulence within, Vera wrestled with a maelstrom of emotions. The discovery of her family's dark pact forced her to confront the possibility that the chains of destiny might be unbreakable, a notion that threatened to shatter the fragile hopes she had nurtured. Yet, amidst the despair, a defiant spark ignited within her. I refuse to be defined by the sins of my forebears, she vowed softly, her eyes blazing with a resolute light that belied the despair in her heart. If redemption lies at the end of this treacherous path, then I will walk it, no matter the cost. Her whispered promise was a beacon of determination, a declaration that the past, however painful, would not dictate her future. As the night deepened, the disparate threads of fate began to intertwine in unforeseen ways. The covert rebellion, led by Raven, the internal strife within Corrin's clan, and Vera's personal quest for identity, converged on the cusp of a monumental turning point. The air crackled with anticipation as both sides prepared for the inevitable clash, a battle that promised to expose long-buried secrets and redefine the boundaries between human and supernatural realms. In the midst of this convergence, a sudden twist sent shockwaves through the already fragile equilibrium. A trusted member of Corrin's inner circle, a figure whose loyalty had never been in question, was revealed to be a double agent, orchestrating a silent coup in collusion with the very forces Raven had rallied. The revelation struck like a lightning bolt, shattering the tenuous bonds of trust and igniting a fury that threatened to consume them all. Betrayal, Corrin growled, his eyes burning with a cold, vengeful fire, is the knife that severs the ties of loyalty and leaves nothing but ruin in its wake. His voice, heavy with both grief and determination, echoed through the chamber, leaving his warriors with the grim understanding that the war they were about to wage was as much against the enemy outside as it was against the treachery within. In the ensuing chaos, alliances fractured and reformed with dizzying speed. Vera, caught in the midst of the spiraling conflict, found herself torn between the growing love for a man whose heart was as burdened as her own, and the realization that her destiny was intertwined with a web of deceit that reached far beyond her understanding. With every passing moment, the stakes escalated. Their actions, every whispered secret, and every bold declaration of defiance, became threads in the tapestry of a future that was both uncertain and irrevocable. In a climactic confrontation, held in the ruins of an abandoned industrial complex on the outskirts of the city, the opposing forces finally collided. The air was thick with the tension of imminent battle, as shifters and insurgents faced off in a standoff that pulsed with the promise of redemption and the threat of utter annihilation. Amid the swirling chaos, Corrin and Vera found a moment of rare intimacy. A shared look that conveyed both sorrow and fierce determination. No matter what comes, Corrin vowed, his voice steady despite the roar of conflict around them, I will protect you, and together, we will carve a new destiny from the wreckage of our past. Vera's reply, soft yet resolute, was a pledge to defy the odds. In the darkness, we will be the light that guides us out of this endless night. Every clash of steel and cry of defiance in that desolate battlefield underscored the magnitude of the choices before them. The revelation of betrayal, the echo of ancestral curses, and the unwavering hope for a future free from the shadows of history collided in a moment that was as violent as it was cathartic. The seeds of redemption, sown amidst betrayal and nurtured by the shared pain of two souls united by fate, began to sprout even in the harshest winter of their lives. As the echoes of battle subsided, and the first hints of dawn crept over the horizon, the survivors, both human and shifter alike, were left to reckon with the cost of their choices. The journey ahead remained shrouded in uncertainty, but one truth stood clear: the legacy of betrayal could be vanquished only by the courage to embrace redemption, to confront the ghosts of the past, and to forge a future defined not by darkness, but by hope. In that fragile pre-dawn silence, the intertwined fates of Vera and Corin, now bound by scars and a newfound resolve, promised a future where the flames of passion and defiance would illuminate even the coldest of nights. And as the city of New Haven began to stir with the promise of a new day, the storm of conflict, secrets, and redemption raged on, each heartbeat echoing the timeless struggle between despair and the promise of a better tomorrow. Under the cover of an unusually stormy night, the factions within New Haven and the hidden shifter clans prepared for what would be a turning point in the war that had long simmered beneath the surface of their divided worlds. The cold air was thick with anticipation as allegiances shifted like the flicker of candlelight in a darkened hall. In the labyrinthine corridors of the ancient mansion, where every stone whispered secrets of centuries past, Corin gathered his most trusted warriors and advisors for a final strategy session before the impending clash with Raven's insurgents and the rebel human coalition. Corin's piercing eyes, reflective of a turbulent soul burdened by past betrayals, scanned the room with an intensity that silenced even the most vocal dissent. "Tonight," he began in a measured tone, "we stand at the precipice of a new era. The enemy is not just outside these walls, it has infiltrated our very ranks. We must root out the traitors, fortify our defenses, and confront the coalition head-on." His words reverberated off the stone walls, instilling a sense of both urgency and determination. Alongside him, Elena and Marcus exchanged knowing glances, each silently vowing to protect their fractured legacy at any cost. Meanwhile, Vera, whose life had become an intricate tapestry of love, betrayal, and the ceaseless search for identity, found herself wrestling with a maelstrom of conflicting emotions. Her recent discoveries about her family's connection to the shifter clans had shattered the comfortable boundaries of her former existence, thrusting her into a role she had never anticipated. Sitting in the solitude of her modest city apartment, with rain slashing the windows and the city's neon glow bleeding into the night, she revisited the weathered documents and letters that hinted at a cursed legacy. "There is power in knowing one's past," she murmured to herself, the sound of her voice mingling with the patter of rain. But what if that power is a burden too heavy to bear? The internal conflict between duty and the desire for freedom gnawed at her, as she struggled to reconcile her love for Corin with the dark truths of her ancestry. Elsewhere, the rebel faction led by Raven had mobilized with a fervor born of years of oppression and hidden resentment. In a derelict warehouse on the outskirts of New Haven, the gathered insurgents, both shifters disillusioned by the old guard and humans embittered by supernatural manipulation, awaited their next command. Raven, a figure cloaked in both mystery and a defiant passion for justice, addressed the assembled crowd. "Our oppressors believe that ancient traditions bind us, that fate is sealed by blood and betrayal," he proclaimed, his voice echoing off the graffiti-scarred walls. "But tonight we reclaim our freedom. We dismantle the old order piece by piece until only the truth remains." His call to arms was not merely a rallying cry, but a promise that the long-hidden injustices would finally be avenged. Back at the mansion, tensions escalated as Corin's inner circle debated their next move. "We cannot trust everyone," Marcus cautioned, his tone laden with the scars of past deceptions. "The traitor in our midst has already cost us dearly. How can we be sure that the alliances we forge now won't crumble like the ruins of our ancestors' empires?" His question, though spoken quietly, struck at the very heart of the clan's fragile unity. Elena, ever the voice of calm amidst chaos, replied, "We must rely on the bonds we have built through years of shared hardship. True loyalty is forged in the crucible of adversity. If we falter now, the consequences will be irreversible." In a secluded wing of the mansion, Vera met with Corin away from prying eyes. Their conversation, hushed and intense, was a private exchange of vulnerabilities and hopes. I fear that every secret we unveil pulls us deeper into a labyrinth, from which there may be no escape, Vera confessed, her eyes searching Corin's for reassurance. Yet, I cannot help but believe that in our unity lies the strength to break free from the chains of our past. Corin's response was measured, his voice carrying the weight of hard-won wisdom. The journey we embark upon is fraught with peril, but every step we take together diminishes the power of the darkness that seeks to define us. Trust in our shared destiny and know that even in the bleakest hours, a spark of hope endures. Their conversation was abruptly interrupted by the sound of hurried footsteps echoing through the stone corridors. A young warrior, his face etched with urgency, burst into the chamber. "Alpha, there's been an ambush on our northern flank. Rebels and traitors have converged on the perimeter near the old industrial district," he announced breathlessly. The gravity in his tone left no room for doubt. The calm that had briefly enveloped the room shattered like fragile glass. Corin's face hardened as he absorbed the news. "Prepare for battle," he commanded, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "We will meet them head-on and show that the spirit of our legacy is unbreakable." The warriors, fueled by a blend of fear and fierce loyalty, quickly donned their armor and prepared to march out into the frigid night, their footsteps echoing a cadence of determination against the cold, unyielding pavement. Outside the mansion, the storm intensified, as if mirroring the tempest that raged within every heart. The city of New Haven, with its stark neon glow and hidden alleyways, became a battleground where ancient rivalries clashed with modern ambition. In the industrial district, where abandoned factories stood as monuments to a bygone era, the rebel forces had already begun to coalesce. The clash between the two sides was inevitable, a collision of ideologies and destinies that would redefine the balance of power. Vera, torn between the roles of reluctant heir to a cursed lineage and a warrior of the heart, found herself drawn to the front lines despite her misgivings. Determined to uncover the truth behind the betrayal that had splintered her family's legacy, she gathered her courage and slipped away from the relative safety of the mansion. With each cautious step through the rain-slicked streets, she felt the pulse of the city echo her own racing heartbeat. Her mind was a whirlwind of memories, of whispered promises, painful betrayals, and a love that had defied the coldest of winters. As she reached the outskirts of the industrial district, the air crackled with the sound of distant skirmishes, the clang of metal on metal, the urgent shouts of combatants, and the low, ominous rumble of engines set the stage for a battle that promised to tear apart the very fabric of the world she had known. Hidden behind a crumbling wall, Vera peered into the chaos unfolding before her. Rebels clashed with Corin's forces in a brutal ballet of strategy and sheer willpower. Amidst the melee, her eyes locked on a figure whose presence sent a chill down her spine, a familiar silhouette moving with a deliberate grace that belied the danger of the conflict. It was Daniel, her estranged cousin whose earlier revelations had upended everything Vera believed about her family. His eyes, now hardened by years of secret suffering, met hers across the battlefield. In that fleeting moment, a silent understanding passed between them, a recognition that their paths, once diverging, were now converging toward a singular, perilous destiny. "Vera," he called softly, barely audible over the cacophony of battle, "you must be cautious. There is more at stake here than the feud between our clans. The true enemy lies hidden, waiting for the moment to strike when our defenses are at their weakest." His words, filled with a mixture of warning and sorrow, resonated deeply with Vera, reinforcing her resolve to uncover the hidden truths that had haunted her lineage. Back at the heart of the mansion, the internal conflict continued to simmer. Elena convened an emergency council meeting with the remaining loyal elders. "We are standing on the brink," she declared, her voice resolute as she surveyed the room. "The betrayal within our ranks cannot be allowed to persist. We must identify the double agent and restore the sanctity of our unity before the enemy exploits our divisions." The elders nodded in grim agreement, their faces etched with the weight of centuries of secrets and sacrifices. The challenge was formidable, but failure was not an option when the future of their people hung in the balance. As the night progressed, the battlefield outside became a swirling vortex of chaos and valor. Corin led his warriors with a commanding presence, his every move a blend of calculated strategy and raw emotion. Every clash, every parry, and every cry of defiance was a testament to the indomitable spirit of a people who had long suffered under the yoke of betrayal and repression. Amidst the roar of combat, a revelation began to take shape, a secret that had been concealed for generations and now threatened to upend the very foundation of their conflict. In a desperate bid to gain the upper hand, a faction of rebel shifters made a daring incursion into the mansion's inner sanctum. Their goal was not merely to defeat Corin's forces, but to seize the ancient artifact rumored to hold the key to unraveling the curse that had plagued the clan for centuries. This relic, hidden away in the depths of the mansion's forgotten vaults, was said to contain the wisdom of their ancestors, a power that could either redeem their tortured legacy or plunge them deeper into despair. As the rebels breached the inner defenses, the sound of their intrusion echoed ominously through the corridors, heralding a turning point that would redefine the battle's course. Inside the vault, Vera found herself face to face with a dusty, intricately carved chest. Its surface was adorned with symbols that resonated with the echoes of ancient prophecies and the unspoken promise of liberation. Guided by a mix of trepidation and unwavering determination, she reached out and opened it. Inside, nestled among relics of a bygone era, was a faded parchment, a final testament left by an ancestor whose voice had long been silenced by time. The parchment bore a message that shattered every preconceived notion of loyalty and destiny. It revealed that the betrayal that had torn apart families and fractured alliances was not the result of personal vendettas, but a carefully orchestrated plan meant to reunite the warring factions through a shared path of redemption. The shock of this revelation sent ripples through Vera's soul. Every secret, every painful memory of loss and betrayal began to coalesce into a singular transformative truth. The artifact was not merely a symbol of the clan's curse. It was a roadmap to their salvation, a means to heal the wounds inflicted by centuries of mistrust and isolation. In that moment, the chaos of the battlefield and the personal anguish that had defined her journey converged into a powerful epiphany. "This is our chance," she whispered, her voice trembling with a mixture of fear and hope. "Our destiny is not to be written by the sins of our past, but to be forged by the courage to embrace a future of unity and forgiveness." With the parchment clutched tightly in her hand, Vera raced through the mansion's echoing halls to find Corin. She needed him to understand that the key to their survival lay not in the continuation of old grudges, but in the willingness to confront and redeem the legacy of betrayal. In the midst of a chaotic confrontation in the Grand Hall, where the forces of rebellion had now converged with the remnants of Corin's loyalists, she found him standing tall, his gaze fixed on the horizon of an uncertain battle. "Corin," she cried out over the clamor, "we have been manipulated by forces that thrive on our division. This artifact, it tells us that the enemy is not the one we face on the battleground, but the darkness that has poisoned our hearts for generations." The Alpha's eyes widened as he took in her words, the weight of the revelation settling in with every heartbeat. In that charged moment, amidst the fury of combat and the cries of valor, the realization dawned that their true enemy was the cycle of betrayal itself, a cycle that could only be broken by the courage to forgive, unite, and redefine the legacy of their people. The atmosphere shifted as both sides hesitated, the prospect of a unified front emerging from the ruins of their shattered alliances. The enemy outside suddenly seemed less significant than the invisible chains that had bound them all to a destiny of perpetual conflict. As the storm of battle raged on, a subtle, almost imperceptible shift began to take place. Soldiers on both sides exchanged wary glances, their fierce determination softening into tentative expressions of understanding. The artifact's message had sown the seeds of reconciliation, and in that fragile moment, the promise of redemption shone through the darkness. Vera's revelation, unexpected and profound, had opened a window to a future where unity might conquer the divisive forces of betrayal. The confrontation reached a fevered pitch as Corin stepped forward, his voice resonating with newfound authority and compassion. "We have suffered long enough from the wounds inflicted by our own hands," he declared, addressing both his warriors and the insurgents. "Let us lay down our arms and embrace a destiny where our differences become the foundation of our strength rather than the source of our strife." His words, laden with the gravity of hard-won wisdom, rippled through the battlefield like a clarion call to peace. For a heartbeat, the chaos paused. The rebels, the loyalists, and even the treacherous elements hidden within the mansion felt the impact of his declaration. In that moment, the weight of centuries of conflict seemed to lift, replaced by the tentative hope that redemption was within reach. Vera and Corin exchanged a look, a silent vow that their love, born amidst the frost and forged in the fires of betrayal, would be the catalyst for a new beginning. Their union, once seen as a forbidden convergence of destinies, now stood as a symbol of what could be achieved when hearts were open to healing. As the first light of dawn crept over the shattered horizon of the industrial district, the echoes of battle subsided into a hushed stillness. The long night of discord was giving way to a fragile day of reconciliation. In the quiet aftermath, the wounded and the weary gathered amidst the ruins, each bearing the scars of a war that was now poised on the brink of transformation. The revelation of the ancient parchment had set in motion an irreversible shift, a turning point that promised to heal old wounds and forge a future defined by unity, forgiveness, and the relentless pursuit of redemption. In the final moments before a new era began, Vera clutched the parchment to her heart as she looked upon the faces of those who had fought and bled for a cause greater than themselves. The true enemy had been unmasked, not in the form of an external adversary, but within the hearts that harbored grudges and pain. And with that understanding, a collective decision was made to cast aside the bitterness of the past and embrace the possibility of renewal. As the sun rose in a blaze of brilliant light, heralding the dawn of a long-awaited truce, the shattered legacy of betrayal began to mend, piece by fragile piece. The battleground, once a stage for endless strife, transformed into a symbol of rebirth, a reminder that even the deepest scars could heal when nurtured by hope and the will to change. The resolution, unexpected yet powerful, promised not only to reconcile the divisions of old, but also to illuminate a future where the legacy of suffering was replaced by the triumph of unity. In that transcendent moment, with the world bathed in the soft glow of morning and the promise of forgiveness echoing through every heart, the journey of Vera, Corin, and their people took on a new meaning. A meaning that transcended the boundaries of fate, redefined the power of redemption, and lit the way to a destiny reimagined. In the tender blush of early dawn, when the last vestiges of night surrendered to the light of a promising new day, the battle-weary survivors of New Haven gathered amidst the ruins of a conflict that had reshaped their very souls. The air, now, charged with a palpable sense of anticipation, carried whispers of an impending reckoning, one that promised not merely the end of hostilities but the rebirth of a fractured legacy. After countless hours of turmoil and the relentless pursuit of redemption, Vera and Corin stood at the epicenter of a transformation that neither time nor bloodshed could ever reverse. In the great hall of the restored mansion, its stone walls, now bearing fresh inscriptions of hope and renewal, the surviving members of both factions assembled in a circle that symbolized unity. The relic from the ancient vault, once a silent witness to betrayals and sorrow, lay at the center on an ornate pedestal. Its faded parchment had long guided them through the labyrinth of secrets and alliances, and now, its final message was about to be revealed. As the first rays of sunlight penetrated the stained glass windows, they illuminated the parchment with a radiant glow, casting intricate patterns on the marble floor, a visual testament to the hidden legacy of their people. Corin, whose eyes bore the scars of endless battles and whose heart had learned to trust the gentle warmth of love, stepped forward. His voice, resonant and calm, carried the weight of a destiny rewritten. Today, we gather not as enemies but as custodians of a history that has been marred by pain, betrayal, and unfulfilled promises, he began, his tone firm yet tender. For generations our clans have been manipulated by forces that sought to keep us divided, by secrets buried deep within our lineage and by the echoes of an ancient curse. But that chapter ends now. A hushed murmur passed through the crowd as Elena, standing beside Corin, nodded in solemn agreement. The artifact we hold before us is no ordinary relic, she declared. It is a key, a map that has guided, us through the darkest hours, and in its final inscription, it reveals the truth behind our suffering and the path to true redemption. With deliberate care, Elena unrolled the parchment for all to see. The script, illuminated by the gentle morning light, detailed a prophecy that was both haunting and liberating. It spoke of a time when the union of two souls, bound by both love and legacy, would have the power to shatter the chains of an ancient curse. Vera's heart pounded as she read the words aloud, her voice steady despite the maelstrom of emotions threatening to overwhelm her. In the union of the chosen, the cycle of betrayal shall be undone. The flame of forgiveness will ignite the darkness, and from the ashes of sorrow, a new era shall rise. Her declaration resonated across the hall, stirring memories of every moment of anguish and hope that had defined their journey. In that instant, it became clear that the long years of discord and the relentless battles had been leading to this singular moment, a moment where the possibility of healing was within reach. The revelation did not come without its own surprise. As Vera's voice echoed, a figure emerged from the shadows of the assembled elders, a figure who had long been regarded as a silent guardian of their traditions. It was Daniel, her estranged cousin, whose earlier warnings and cryptic advice had often left her questioning his true allegiance. His weathered face now softened with a serene wisdom that belied the years of hardship. "Vera," he spoke, his tone a blend of pride and sorrow. "The secret that binds us is not merely one of blood and betrayal. It is a covenant forged in the crucible of time. Our ancestors, in their infinite foresight, understood that only through unity could the wounds of the past be healed." His words, laden with both regret and hope, reverberated with an unexpected clarity. The betrayal that had once seemed so insurmountable was, in fact, a carefully laid path toward a greater purpose. It was then that the true twist of destiny was revealed, a truth that none had foreseen, not even Corin. The parchment's final lines disclosed that the orchestrated strife, the bitter rivalries, and even the traitorous acts committed by members of their own clans were not the random machinations of a cruel fate. Instead, they were the deliberate actions of an ancient power, a spirit of the first Alpha, whose heart had been shattered by centuries of regret. This ancestral specter, long thought to be a myth, had subtly manipulated events from the shadows. Its goal had been to force a reckoning, to compel the warring factions to confront the very essence of their shared curse. "The spirit of the first Alpha," Elena intoned softly, "has watched over us all. It planted the seeds of conflict so that only by embracing our collective pain and rising above it could we ever find true liberation." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. The revelation redefined every struggle they had endured. The ancient curse was not a punishment inflicted by an external enemy, but rather a self-perpetuating cycle fueled by their inability to forgive, to trust, and to unite. The manipulations of the spectral presence had been a catalyst, a harsh but necessary force to jolt them from their complacency. In that moment, the true enemy was unmasked. It was the darkness within themselves, the unresolved grudges and the unhealed wounds that had festered over generations. Corin's gaze met Vera's, and in that silent exchange lay the profound understanding that their love was not just a forbidden romance, but the very embodiment of hope. "We have been deceived by our own fears," Corin said, his voice trembling, with both vulnerability and strength. "The enemy was never an external force. It was the legacy of our past, the unwillingness to let go of pain, and the refusal to see the humanity within us all." His admission, raw and sincere, bridged the gap between the ancient and the modern, between the supernatural and the mortal. "Our path to redemption lies not in fighting one another, but in forgiving the betrayals that have defined us." In a stirring moment of unity, the leaders of both factions stepped forward to declare a truce, a vow to dismantle the cycles of vengeance and bitterness that had long torn them apart. Raven, once the fierce and unyielding rallying cry of the rebel faction, lowered his weapon and joined the circle, his eyes glistening with the tears of a long-hidden sorrow. "I have fought for justice, for a future free of tyranny," he said, his voice echoing through the hall. "But justice without mercy is no justice at all. Let us lay down our arms, not in defeat, but in the courageous act of forgiveness." The moment was electric. One by one, those who had once stood on opposing sides came together, forming a chain of intertwined hands that stretched across the cavernous hall, a symbolic embrace of reconciliation. The ancient curse was finally being met with a force it could not withstand, the transformative power of compassion, the healing balm of unity. The spectral manipulator, the spirit of the first alpha, seemed to waver in the background, its influence dissolving like mist under the morning sun. The very fabric of their destiny was being rewoven by the threads of forgiveness and the resolute determination to forge a new era. As the assembly embraced its newfound purpose, Vera felt a profound shift within her own heart. All the betrayals, the weight of secrets, and the relentless pursuit of truth had converged to bring her to this pivotal moment of clarity. Her journey had been one of pain and passion, of battles fought in the external world and within her very soul. And now, as she stood amidst those who had once been her enemies, she recognized that her role was far greater than that of a mere pawn. She was a catalyst for change, a beacon whose light would guide them out of the darkness. In a final act of symbolic closure, Corin extended his hand to Vera. Their fingers intertwined in a gesture that transcended the physical, sealing not only their love, but the promise of a shared future. "Let this union be the cornerstone of our redemption," he declared, his eyes alight with a fervor that belied his once impenetrable reserve. "Together, we shall honor the legacy of our ancestors by ensuring that the mistakes of the past do not dictate the fate of the future." Vera's reply was soft yet resolute, imbued with the certainty of a new beginning. "Our story is not defined by the betrayals we have suffered, but by the courage with which we choose to rise above them. Today, we reclaim not only our legacy, but our humanity." Her words, echoing across the hall, resonated with every soul present, sealing the pact of unity and the promise of lasting change. As the sun climbed higher, bathing the assembly in a warm golden light, the atmosphere shifted from one of wariness to one of celebration, a quiet, heartfelt acknowledgement that redemption was possible. The halls of the mansion, once steeped in sorrow and suspicion, now rang with a collective hope for the future. Old scars, though still visible, were now symbols of resilience. Every betrayal, every tear shed in solitude, had paved the way for this transformative moment. In the days that followed, the legacy of that fateful morning rippled outward, touching every corner of New Haven. The once divided clans began to forge new alliances, blending traditions with modern ideals and embracing the diversity that had long been suppressed by a cycle of conflict. The city itself, a vibrant mosaic of urban energy and ancient mystery, became a living testament to the power of unity over division. The enigmatic relic was enshrined in a newly established hall of remembrance, a place where every generation could come to reflect on the tumultuous path that had led them to this day. There, the parchment was displayed alongside portraits of those who had given everything for the cause of redemption, serving as a constant reminder that even in the darkest times, the light of hope could prevail. In a final, poignant twist that no one had anticipated, the spirit of the first alpha made one last appearance, a quiet, almost imperceptible nod from the ethereal realm. In that fleeting moment, as if satisfied with the outcome of its long-orchestrated plan, the spectral presence receded into the annals of history. Its legacy, rather than one of eternal suffering, was transformed into a legacy of unity, a testament to the idea that every heartbreak can be a prelude to healing, and every betrayal, a catalyst for profound change. As the gathering dispersed, leaving behind the echoes of reconciliation and the promise of a united future, Vera and Corin remained together on the steps of the mansion. Their eyes, meeting in silent understanding, carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken words, a promise that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. In that moment, the battle scars of the past glimmered with the potential of tomorrow, each one a testament to the fact that even the deepest wounds could be healed by the transformative power of love. With a final lingering glance at the rising sun, a symbol of renewal and infinite possibility, the assembly stepped out into a world reborn. The legacy of sorrow was replaced by one of hope, and the promise of redemption echoed in every heart. And as New Haven embraced this new dawn, Its citizens carried forward the timeless lesson that true strength lies not in the isolation of old grudges, but in the collective courage to redefine one's destiny.